So, jodan UK, alright? So just to recap on what we've done. People have asked recently, okay, why GKR practice jodan UK come up the inside? And there's some arguments floating around out there that say that that's the incorrect way to perform the technique, and I disagree. Everything I'm about to say in this video, by the way, is my opinion, alright? So if anyone watching this video disagrees with me, don't disagree with GKR. This isn't GKR saying it, this is me saying it, this is my opinion. Does that make sense, yeah? Alright? So, some people argue that the way we train jodan UK is incorrect because it's impractical, okay? And the demonstration that's been shown recently on social media is someone grabbing a person's arm here and saying that coming up the inside doesn't work, which is correct if you want to do what I'm about to do. And so we have to come up the inside to break the hold, okay? But then in this video, it then gets grabbed. So to me, it looks more like a Cark UK than a jodan UK, all right? Okay? So grabbing the arm here, it looks more like a Cark UK has been performed there. But let's say that it is meant to be a jodan UK that turns into a grab. So we're not going to get into what it is. It looks to me like more like a Cark UK. And we practice Cark UKs. We practice plenty of techniques going up the outside. We practice Cark UK, we practice Morse UK, we practice Hooch UK. So we have plenty of techniques, 3-to-1 ratio, where we practice going up the outside. So if we need to go up the outside, we've done the training for it. Does that make sense? Okay. So first of all, what we need to understand is that jodan UK is probably the worst technique to use to defend against a straight head level punch. Okay? And the reasons for that is this. Mike's a fairly big guy. If he comes straight at me with a punch, it's not the punch I need to worry about, it's everything following it. Does that make sense, yeah? Jodan UK deflects upwards. So if I deflect him upwards, everything else underneath is still coming at me with everything that it's got, all his body weight. Does that make sense, yeah? Which is why when most of us defend, when most of you do kumite, and you block a head level straight punch, we tend to go to the side, we tend to deflect, because we want his body weight to go past and all his other weapons to travel past me. So we will use soto ukes or soto uke Cark UK or mawashes or Hooch UK. Does that make sense? We will try and divert them sideways, because if we divert them upwards, his body weight will still carry through. So a jodan UK, and be aware that jodan UK doesn't translate to head level block. It's a upper level rising reception. It's receiving something. Does that make sense, yeah? So we're not using it to block most of the time, okay? But using it to block a straight head level punch is probably not the best thing to do, okay? But a hooking punch, brilliant. So let's use the scenario that was in the video that's floating around on Facebook where the guy grabbed my arm. Now, first of all, I don't know why your hand would be up here, okay? But let's say it is. Let's say my hands are up high and he grabs his hand. If he grabs me with his hand, I don't really need to worry about breaking that hold. If he grabs me with his hand, he doesn't want to use his hand. I don't need to worry about that hand, I need to worry about this hand. Does that make sense? If he grabs me and comes in for a hooking punch and I go up the outside, which is what this person in this video is saying I should be doing, I've got to break that hold and then block the punch. Now, I'm big and strong and that might be something I can achieve, yeah? I might be able to go through both. Might be some cool thing that you can see in a film. But I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to go through something to get to where I want to be. Does that make sense, yeah? If he's grabbing this hand, then let him grab it. Let him keep hold of it. In fact, use my hikite and take control of it and come up the inside and use the jodan UK to defend against the other strike. Does that make sense? If I come up the outside, it doesn't work. If I come up the inside, it does work. Does that make sense, yeah? Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing, using wrist grabs, like I said earlier in the class, I'm not a big fan of wrist grabs because wrist grabs tend to happen after something else. So starting a self-defense scenario from a wrist grab is a little bit unrealistic, okay? Always assume that if we practice something from a wrist grab, something's happened to get us to that scenario. Does that make sense? It's unlikely that someone's going to come and grab your wrist because he brings his face forward, he leans forward, I can easily defend. Does that make sense? It's likely we've got to here, and I've probably gone to strike his groin and he's grabbed my wrist. Does that make sense? Yeah? So here, again, if I use jodan UK to break this hold, if I come up I'll just start on the inside here, if I come up the outside, nothing happens. But if I come up the inside, something does happen. Does that make sense? So when someone grabs my low wrist, if they grab my high wrist, I've got to worry about the punch. If they grab my low wrist, I've got to come up the inside to break the hold. So there's two reasons why come up the inside works. How's it? Got enough time in the video, yeah? Okay? Alright, I've deleted lots of guitar videos, so there's plenty of memory. Okay. Alright, I'll cut that bit out. Alright. So wrist grabs, okay? So high one, don't worry about it. Grab him, pull him down, pull his shoulder down. This way. Make sense? And block the other arm. If it's a low wrist grab, which has probably been superseded by something else, I've got to come up the inside to break the hold. Does that make sense, yeah? Okay. What was the next one we did? We did against the wall, that's it. So we're going to go, we'll just pin up against this curtain, alright? Imagine it's solid. Alright, just bring the video around a little bit, Liam. Okay. So again, going from, just stop for a minute. Here's one of the biggest issues with traditional old-fashioned karate, especially from the sort of Japanese side of things, is they tend to teach unrealistic fight scenarios. They tend to fight in stance, they tend to start from these kind of positions. Does that make sense? A head level punch comes forward, I step back to a jodan UK, I do a punch, I bring my hand back into chamber without, hikite means pull in hand, I've not pulled anything, you see videos like that, and then they go back to the starting position, and then I do it, and people see that kind of stuff who don't do karate, and they go, karate doesn't work, no one fights like that, and that opinion is valid if that's all they think karate is. Does that make sense, yeah? Okinawan karate, where karate started, is from what we call habitual acts of violence, which is more likely fight scenarios. And those are really grappled, these kind of positions, or pin you up against the wall, or grabbing you. Does that make sense? Most of our karate starts from those positions, not from these positions, okay? Granted, white belt, yellow belt, orange belts, we might teach this kind of basic stuff. In fact, just right hand forward for me, I might teach white belts to block, head level block like this. And as you can see, it doesn't matter whether I go up the outside or the inside, I still achieve what I want to achieve. But that's not what head level block's for. I'm only teaching it to white belts and yellow belts to give them something to do with their arm. There's that ringtone again. Give them something to do with their arm and put their arm where I want it to be. Does that make sense? Okay. When Mike pins me up against the wall, okay, here, again, if I practice head level block, I shouldn't call it head level block, I'll call it jodan UK. If I practice jodan UK come up the outside, then again, I can't get anywhere. But if my jodan UK comes up the inside, here, does that make sense? I can strike. Boom, I can move forward. So when we stand in line, when we do line drills like this, moving forward, makes sense? Turning the hip, pulling the hikite back, stretching forward. It's for this kind of thing. Does that make sense? Coming over the top, again, simple rule of self-defense. If someone grabs you, they don't want to use their hands. So make sure they can't use them. If they grab you, grab them, yeah? But I can't come up the outside, I've got to come up the inside to perform that technique. Does that make sense? So there's 3 examples of why coming up the inside is valid. Does that make sense? None of them would have worked if we came up the outside. By the way, I'm not saying that going up the outside is incorrect. It's what some styles do. And there's a time and a place to go up the outside, yeah? But we have Clark UK, Morse UK, and Uch UK going up the outside. So we have blocks to revert to if that's necessary. I'm just explaining, in response to the video that's going out on Facebook, why it needs to come up the inside. Does that make sense, yeah? Okay. What was the other one we did? There was there was 4, wasn't there? So the other one was grabbing the head, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. Alright, so again, getting ourselves in a grapple situation, okay, here. This is the one I like, okay, this one I like where we grab the back of his head and come up the inside and strike the jaw there. Now that's going to be very painful, does that make sense? But again, it doesn't work if I practice jodan UK, come up the outside, it doesn't work. All it does is just bruise his chest, and I'm pulling his head forward into mine. So this is going to happen. Does that make sense? Yeah? But coming up the inside, because I've practiced it, works. Boom, this way. Does that make sense? Yeah? I could hold him lower down if I want to here, which is similar to what we did back there. But again, it needs to come up the inside to work. It doesn't work going on the outside. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay? So that's kind of a bit of a recap. I've just done 4 techniques. There's a whole bunch. of different ways you can look at it, but the reason why we practice coming to the inside is not incorrect, as has been stated, okay? It's not incorrect, it's just different. And the reason why it's different is because there's a whole bunch of applications that we need to practice going inside. In fact, as someone said, Samantha said, and I'll call you by your full name because your mum might be watching, as Santa said, it's one of the only blocks we have that got the inside. We have Shutuuke, but it's got a different travel. It starts with the elbow up and it goes forward. Even jodan, technically we could say starts from the inside. But it's the only block that travels up the inside of the returning arm, the hikate hand, that travels upwards and forwards. So we need that for all those other things. And if we need to adapt and put it on the outside, we can. This is something you've got to get across, is that, you know, just because you practice it one way doesn't mean you can't adapt. And again, some people would argue, well, because you practice it, you will, in a heat of the moment, in a fight, when adrenaline is running, and you can't think, you'll always do what you practice. I agree with that 100%. But I also practice Kar-Uke, Wash-Uke, and Uchi-Uke, 3-to-1 ratio of blocks that go up the outside. So if I need to on the outside, to go back to the example in the video, which is completely unrealistic by the way, but if I need to up the outside, then I will. And I'll probably do a Kar-Uke and grab hold of the guy that way. Does that make sense, yeah?
Yeah.
But if he's got hold of me, don't worry about that hand. Why worry about that hand? Worry about all this. And in order to defend yourself against all of that, I've got to come up the inside. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so that's there you go. That's my take on jodan uke. End scene.